So yes, it's an unpopular opinion for sure, but I do think that everyone looking to make the most money in crypto should really consider selling their entire Bitcoin holdings in this bull run. The reason for this is likely not what you expect, but today we're going to run through the numbers and I'm going to try to prove to you why mathematically this is a pretty understandable opinion, I think. Now, of course, let me preface all of this by saying I think those of you who hold a lot of Bitcoin or are of the firm belief, I'm not selling anything, all right, I'm going to hold this thing until the moon and sun eventually implode, that's fine. But what I'm going to run through today is the example in which maybe you might want to sell some of it, maybe even it convinces you to think otherwise. I'm not trying to convince you to sell your Bitcoin in this video, but I do think nevertheless, it is an important point to at least consider, right? And guys, I cannot forget to mention, we are doing a giveaway in the private community. Links down below to enter the vault. Join up any level. When you're in there, you're going to go into the chance just by being in there to win a share of $20,000 cold hard cash. We're giving 10K to 2 people by the end of the bull run. So this might be a great chance for you to walk away with a whole bunch of money, and it's just for you being in there as well. All the extra benefits are, of course, involved as well. Now, before we get into the heavy hitting information, you can help support me in all I do around here and all the work that goes into planning these videos by hitting that like button right now and importantly subscribing, because that's how you are going to succeed this bull run, plain and simple. What you absorb and the more you think dictates the outcome. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm here to help. Okay, so let's get into this video now. I understand some of you guys like watching very quick videos. You hate when I waffle. I understand. I like to talk a little bit too much. So I am going to try to run through this as fast as possible, but in a way in which you can understand, but it's all going to come together at the very end. So I need you to pay attention. If you are someone that is inclined to skip ahead, you're likely going to miss the parts in which I explain how we got there, which ultimately is the most important thing I think in a video. So first of all, you have to understand what most people perceive their Bitcoin holdings to be. Time and time again, I go on one-on-one calls. By the way, shout out to everyone who gets on a one-on-one call with me. And, you know, a lot of these guys think, okay, well, I'm going to have to buy Bitcoin now and hold it for eternity. And usually the lower they buy Bitcoin, the more that idea is reinforced. The more they think, well, the lower I've got in, the more multiples I can make over time, which makes sense. But I'm going to show you why this is actually a flawed approach, not at anyone's fault, of course, in just a second. Hopefully this will awaken you up to more multiples, more possibilities, if you will. So if you buy Bitcoin today at $58,000, and if you're watching this in the future, it really doesn't matter what price you buy Bitcoin, but because we'll look at this at the end and it will all make sense. But if you bought Bitcoin today at $58,000, you just bought one, okay? The idea is that obviously you skip out selling 2025 and you end up selling, let's say 2030. Let's say Bitcoin goes to $1 million, and let's say you're a genius, you're a god, you're a legend, and you sell at the exact top. We all want to be you, right? And you end up making $1 million. Congratulations, you made 17x. That's some pretty good multiples. And ultimately, what's that, like a 6-year hold? Not too bad if you ask me. But here is something I need you to consider, not just for Bitcoin. Bitcoin, this definitely applies because most people have that ideology of holding for the long term. This applies for all your altcoins, guys. It's called multi-cycle compounding. You guys who are channel subscribers know about this. You're like, oh God, here we go again, right? But I need to reinforce this because I know you guys are subscribed and watch this sort of stuff, but you still sometimes disregard it. Now, if you disregard it because, hey, I just want to hold my Bitcoin forever, that's fine. But I need you to really consider this. So basically, the multi-cycle compounding outlook goes, okay, 6-year outlook, just like buying now and selling all in 2025. But you buy now, you sell in 2025. Okay, so you buy and sell in this time. And then you buy it back in 2028, and then you sell in 2030. So basically, rather than buying now and selling everything in 2030, you're going to just do a couple extra steps, right? Sell it in 2025, and then buy back in the next bear market. And the idea obviously goes that you'll be able to make money here. The price of Bitcoin will obviously fall to a price in which you'll be able to buy more Bitcoin. Remember, if we buy 1 Bitcoin down here, pretty much if we buy even 1.0000 infinity 1, theoretically speaking, Bitcoin, we actually have made this a viable approach. Now, lots of stress, time, energy, all the rest of it's gone into it. So maybe if we're looking at this example, it wouldn't quite be worth it. But technically, as long as you buy more than 1 Bitcoin here, because of the money you've made in 2025, this is what compounding sort of means by multi-cycle compounding, you'll be winning. So if you bought 1.1 Bitcoin down here with the money you made up here, you've won. Because now, if you go to sell in 2030, with the same example from before, rather than selling 1 Bitcoin at $1 million, you'll be selling 1.1 Bitcoin. So you'd get pretty much $1 million $100,000 in revenue. Does that make sense? Okay, so again, we're looking to pretty much take our profits this cycle and then look to make all that money we've made, the multiples we've made from this cycle, into the next cycle as well. So let's run through an example here. And then at the end, I'm going to show you something that I think most people that tend to disagree with this idea like to bring up. And it's actually a very interesting one at that. And spoiler alert, the question is, well, okay, so if we do this, what if Bitcoin doesn't fall down to a price that allows me to at least buy more than one Bitcoin back? What happens if I buy back in 2028 and I can only buy 0.9 Bitcoin? Therefore, I've pretty much lost a Bitcoin in this time period. It's a very valid question because you don't want to be doing all this sort of stuff, selling your Bitcoin in 2025, trying to buy back in, and ultimately you would have been better off holding it this whole entire time. So let's answer that question, and I think you'll be very surprised. But first of all, I want to run through a quick example here, okay? So if you bought Bitcoin today at $58,000, so you bought one Bitcoin, doesn't matter if it's Bitcoin today is priced at $70,000, you buy one Bitcoin, okay? Now, this cycle, let's say the all-time high for Bitcoin is 250K. That might be considered by some to be very pessimistic, quite low. But we're not geniuses. We're not gods. All right, we get out 150K. I think very reasonable. So you make it 2.5x. You've got 150K now because, again, you had one Bitcoin. So whatever Bitcoin's price goes to, you sell it all, you make that amount of money. So you made 150K. Okay, and the next bear market comes around. So it's 2028, and you say, right, now is the time to pull the trigger. Bitcoin's price is, matter of fact, not even lower than today's price. Let's say it's the same price. Now, I am on the firm belief it'll actually fall beneath this current price or around. So I think that you'll probably even get better deal than this. But let's say it goes to the same price as today. You buy as much as you can because now you own more money. You have more money, right? So you have $150,000. You look to maybe, let's just say, throw in $125,000. You keep $25K aside for maybe tax or whatever you need to do there. And you buy as much Bitcoin as you can with $125K. So now you buy 1.9 Bitcoin. So you see the benefit here, right? You went from owning one Bitcoin to now 1.9, almost 2 Bitcoin, because you just simply sold, and with the money you made, you put it back in and bought more. All right, that's the plan with a lot of you guys. You think just hold and sell in 2030, nothing wrong with that again. But again, use that money that you would have just kept and held to throw back into Bitcoin. You know, you have to put some money away for tax, sure, but again, we've just proven it here. So 1.9 Bitcoin, even if you don't sell at the $1 million mark, right? Let's just say you're, again, not trying to time the top and you're not a god, you sell at 600K, you make $1.14 million. So you're 10x there. So overall, you're 12.5x versus over here, okay? Even if you sold at the $1 million mark, you'd make less money than selling at 600K. Obviously, if you sold Bitcoin at the very top in the same example, all right, you'd make 1.9 million. So you're pretty much doubling your money, and less multiples. Less multiples simply because you're compounding. So you can see why this is a very, very important thing to understand. Compounding is one of the natural wonders of the world, as they say. And this is just compounding on a less frequent scale, all right? With interest, normally you can compound sometimes daily, monthly, usually even yearly. But in this case, we're compounding a cycle, okay? So usually about 2 to 4 years. In this case, every 2 years, we're basically going to be compounding. Now, I think that this strategy is super important to consider, especially because there is likely going to be a massive global market crash, right? The housing market, the stock market, crypto especially being a very speculative heavy market will likely come crumbling down to some degree in around 2026 to about 2029. That's when the experts expect it to occur. And I think if you're someone looking to hold Bitcoin, there is a good chance, non-financial advice, a good chance, not a certain chance, that will actually go beneath likely the price that you've bought Bitcoin at. And today, $58,000, and I think, even lower than today, honestly. So it's something to consider for everyone. Now, what is the max price Bitcoin would have to fall to in order for this whole compounding plan I just described to you to not be worthwhile? Meaning, of course, again, that essentially you would have been better off just holding, just simply holding. Now, I'm going to run the example through here with today's price of $58,000. But yes, if you're watching this in the future where the price might be $30,000, or that's when you bought in at, right? Or it might be $70,000, the same thing will apply. It's very simple math. I'll show you how it all works here in a second. But I want to complicate this because I want to be very specific and show you guys truly what it would have to come to and how you would have to work out the math yourself. When it comes to crypto investing and trading, math matters, really does. Being specific and actually finding the truth, the actual answer is very important. You can be off by a few numbers here and it can really change things, right? So again, we buy one Bitcoin at today's price. Okay, we sell our Bitcoin, again, same situation as before, at $150,000 per Bitcoin. So we've made 150 grand. It's a very important number because whatever you sell Bitcoin at, then we can begin working things out because that's how much money you've made. Obviously, if you've got 3.145 Bitcoin, all right, whatever revenue you've pretty much made is the important number here to consider. Or at least you might be someone who wants to work out the profit rather than the revenue. Now, I don't want to confuse things, but in most cases, you don't need to work out the profit number. And I'll show you why here in a second. Usually it's the revenue, which is much better for us. Let me explain. So essentially, you've just made $150,000 with Bitcoin, selling at 150K. Cool. All right, well, so we want to do this plan, but you're thinking to yourself, well, Kyron, what's the price I'm kind of eyeing off here to be careful? It's got to fall beneath. Because again, if it falls beneath the level, we're making more than one Bitcoin, which means we've successfully recompounded, right? We've essentially made that time worthwhile because we've gained an extra Bitcoin. We've gained extra Bitcoin, basically. Obviously, if it goes above, we're going to gain less Bitcoin, which is bad because it would have been better just holding. So turns out that at this particular price here, $150,000 basically would end up looking to get out about $112,500. But this actually isn't really specifically true either. Reason being is because I've actually considered tax in this case. And if you do this multi-cycle compound, the only thing you should be considering is tax because your alternative of decision is to just buy and hold Bitcoin forever. So in this, I would assume you're not trying to take out money for house, car, whatever. It's just in here for Bitcoin for 6 years, like the alternative option for hodling. So you might pay 25% tax and boom, there you go. So you just take off the tax off the money you've got, and that would be pretty much the target. Because if the price goes above $112,500, let's say it goes to $113,000, obviously that small $500 difference is going to mean that you're now buying just slightly less than one Bitcoin because this is how much money you have in your piggy bank. Does that make sense? Obviously, it falls below. If it falls down to $112,000, right, you'll be able to buy more Bitcoin because you've got $500 more cash. So that's what we're sort of looking at here is this number in particular. But again, like I said before, this actually isn't even accurate. It's actually lower. It's actually higher, which is better for us. Okay, the higher the better, the more realistic it'll fall underneath because I've actually taxed including the revenue because I've actually taxed the cost basis. The cost basis being the $58,000 that you put in. So really, this would be a lot less, a lot more rather. This should probably be around about I'm just throwing numbers around, but let's say 125K-ish. To work that out, you just pretty much take out the $58,000 and then recalculate. So it'd be $150,000 minus $58,000 would be, roughly speaking, your new, profit, and that profit you would tax 25%. For an example, and that would be your new level, which I actually did the quick math there, comes to $127,000. So I was pretty close, right? So even better for us. Again, higher this is, the better. Now, I've got a second number here, which is profit, all right? You're thinking, what the hell are you talking about profit here? Well, you would never need to use this. This is an example because, again, you wouldn't try to be, you wouldn't need to really work out what is the absolute lowest level I'd have to sell, buy Bitcoin if I'm going to take out my cost basis. So let's just say, for example, you were someone who's like, I want to take out the money I've got here in Bitcoin I put in today. Well, again, it's a similar sort of situation as before, but this time the price comes to $69,000. Okay, so essentially if you kept $81,000, so you kept 25% tax and the $58,000, you'd have to look for a price of $69,000 for Bitcoin, which is worse for us to compound because obviously the lower the price, the harder it is for us to fall down there eventually. And that obviously means that we'll end up buying less than one Bitcoin. So again, I just wanted to show that for you guys who are freaks. If you're someone who's scratching your head, which one do I use? Definitely just work out the tax unless you wanted to pull some money out. And if you wanted to pull some money out anyway, you're likely going to be someone who would want to do the compounding plan regardless because you need money back. You need money for some reason, okay? Does that make sense, guys? I hope it does, because does that make sense, guys? I hope it does, but I want you to let me know down below what you think, okay? So do I think that in this example here, Bitcoin would fall as low as, well, again, depends on how much you sell Bitcoin for. If you sell Bitcoin at $90,000 and you have one Bitcoin, the math's going to be a bit different. However, I do think that generally speaking, most people will find that actually compounding is better for them, or at least a portion of their portfolio to help supercharge their overall gains. You might want to hold 50% for the next 6, 7, 12 years, whatever. You might want to do this for 50%. all right, which will help really for the top side as well. So guys, thank you for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed, and I'd love to see what some of the numbers you come back at yourself. Save this video for later, and when you're working out the calculations, let's see what you got. All right, talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.